Okay, so it's recording on my laptop. That'll be fine. Okay, so that's why I'm here twice. We're going to get started. We're calling the order at 6:06. And who is present? Let me pull up. It's hard when I have to manage all this myself. I'm so spoiled. Need a secretary. Contacts. So let me pull this up. Oh shit, messed up. Okay, so I am obviously present. Bennett is present. Orion is present. We do not have Kyle. We have John. We do not have Reese. We have Mike. We do not have Mason. We have Brandon. We do not have Matthias. So that's 6 of us present, 4 absent. I do hope they come because this is an important meeting. Let me pull up the agenda and I will share my screen. Great. It won't let me. Hold on. I need to make myself co-host on this other screen. And now I should be able to share. Yes. When there's a will, there's a way. Okay. The agenda is up and we are going to go into opportunity for public comment. And we have 2 guests that I invited. They're from the Libertarian Party of Massachusetts. We have 2 minutes each for public comment. I did invite them because I do think they have some powerful just experiences that will guide us in our decisions. I don't know if Scott or Brody wishes to go first, but we do welcome you here and welcome hearing from you. I'll just call him Brody first to make it easy. Brody.
Yeah, thank you, Karen Ann. Yeah, as Karen Ann said, my name is Brody. I'm a member out in the Libertarian Party of Massachusetts, or Unified Libertarians of Massachusetts, whatever we call it now. And I'm just here to give perspective on what I've heard is a proposal to possibly give your executive committee expulsion powers. Just to give myself background, I am, I guess, the architect, if you will, of the special petition out here in Massachusetts. I noticed that our state committee at the time was going in a very, very unfriendly direction, and I felt like the membership would agree with me in the fact that we needed to replace them. And I believe Karen Ann would remember when I came to her in about December of 21 with an idea of how to get the special convention going. And I don't know, Karen Ann, if you remember, I specifically mentioned, hey, you know, are we giving them a list of people to expel? And you know, Karen Ann agreed that maybe that was a possibility, but it'd be the most insane thing she'd ever seen. Well, not less than a month later, the most insane thing that I'd ever seen as well occurred when there was a clandestine meeting of the state committee where they expelled 47 members for the explicit purpose, for the explicit reason of signing a petition, which was a valid petition, a legal petition under our founding documents here in Massachusetts. So I feel strongly as somebody who has spent basically over a year of their life and a lot of the time of my close friends trying to solve this issue, where one particularly small group was able to seize control of the party assets and of the party to some extent. And we had to work around that through lots of blood, sweat, and tears. And I don't have much more to say than I think one should be extremely careful, or rather, I don't maybe even stronger than that. I think giving that type of power to a closed board, like an executive board, is an extremely bad idea, and it's cost us a huge amount of our time here in Massachusetts that we could have spent, rather than spending rebuilding a party, we could have spent doing more productive things such as fighting the state. That's all I have to say. I just, anybody has any questions on what you've experienced out here, the particular details, we have a very long, nearly 200-page document outlining the timeline and kind of what happened, but more or less, our founding documents were so deficient in the fact that they deferred so much power to the state committee, especially the power of expulsion. It fractured the party in kind of an irreparable manner that we're still trying to put peace back together to this day. That's all I have. Thanks, Dana.
Thank you, Brody and Scott.
Yeah, I agree with Brody. There's not a lot of reason to give you the dirty details, except to the extent you want or need to hear them. But we had the experience. I was also one of the 47 who was expelled, and after a great deal of effort that some of you may be aware of, that led to two groups claiming to be that original party. We actually have two separate PACs in Massachusetts that claim to have inherited the mandate of the original group, but there are now effectively two separate groups. And our group, the one that Brody and I come from, is the one that's recognized by national. But my perspective is this: it's that it's very tempting to try to protect an organization that you have built. There's good reason to. Everyone wants to protect anything that they've put their heart and soul into. But to protect it, what you really need is vigilance. The act of building a structure that is designed to protect the group does the exact opposite. Here's the key problem, is that a group of nice and reasonable people attempting to act reasonably and well vis-a-vis other human beings will almost never exercise an expulsion power. A group of people intent on seizing power and certain that they are right will happily use any flimsy excuse or ability that's laid down anywhere as a means to take power. And it's the great conundrum in organization building, is how do you protect an organization? And ultimately, I think your answer has to be vigilance, rather than giving your group the ability to expel or exclude, because that's a tool that's far too easy for someone else to use. And I'm done.
I thank both of you for agreeing to come here. So I know some of this might be puzzling to some folks here, and I will call on you in one moment, Mr. Seebeck. I thank you. For those of you who don't know some of the background, both Brody and Scott were expelled simply for exercising rights of a member, but the board manufactured reasons to do so, said that signing a petition was an act of aggression against the party, that they were protecting the party. But what some people forget is that they weren't the first. It actually started with somebody who just said that they were going to troll the state board on social media, and that person got expelled for that. And it just steamrolled from there. There's often very, very good intentions behind things. These people didn't create that provision. It was already in there. But, you know, just like sometimes if there's a president we like, we're like, great, you know, they seize this power. But there's always going to be a president you don't like, and you're always going to be a person that president doesn't like. Things like this I've just seen go horribly wrong, but I thought having some very human people, and what I think, and perhaps Scott and Brody didn't experience this, but I know some people did, that there's more than just you guys spent a year fighting to get things righted. There's a very real emotional toll and ego hit and psychic damage this happens on a person, even if you think that eventually things will be made right. For some people, not everybody, they don't get over this. This is public it's being pilloried in the public square, and it's very, very psychically damaging to people. I can tell you, I am not over what the ONC did to me. I honestly don't think I'll ever get over it. And some people don't react that way, but some people do. And we have to be really, really careful when we're giving a small group, because power corrupts, the power to do that to somebody. So thank you, Brody. And then I see I have Mr. Seebeck and Mr. Rutledge, and both of you, please, if we can, obviously you can ask questions of Brody or Scott, but once we're done with public comment, I don't want to keep them much longer, though you guys are welcome to stay throughout the whole meeting if you want, but I know you had your own bylaws, long meetings. You would be a very special masochist if you want to stay through a Colorado 3-hour meeting, but you're certainly welcome. Mr. Seebeck.
Well, I'll put it to you this way. There is not a successful business or organization in existence that does not have the means to get rid of the bad apples within their organization. Where do you think these companies that have made this country be what they are over years would it be if they had no ability to remove bad players, fire them, or in general call out the bad apples? They would not stay in business very long. And I would also add something else, that if people are unable to psychologically get over this happening to them, and I've been through this too, then I would submit that they should recuse themselves from the discussion on this, because that bias will cloud their judgment.
There's nothing wrong with having bias,
This
and I
needs to
will
be
not,
addressed objectively.
Mr. Seebeck.
I'm not naming names, and I have.
Oh no, I'll name names because you're directing something at a comment I just said, and I think that's inappropriate. I recognize your request for me to recuse myself, and I decline.
I would also point out that the idea of organizing the structure of an organization such that there is no means to remove people is actually a larger risk than not having it at all. The idea of being so concerned about the idea of someone may abuse the privilege. Well, you know what? That is an associated risk that comes with the structure of any organization.
Mr. Seebeck, do you have a question for, because we are going to be debating this. This is getting into debate to the members of Colorado, which I engaged in a little bit as well. So that's why I let it go. But we are going to be debating this when it's appropriate. I don't want to keep Scott and Brody longer than possible. So if there are comments that are relevant to the guests, otherwise we can save.
I would suggest that the guests go read some Kevin Carson and organizing principles of organizations, and they will discover that the necessity of having the ability to remove bad actors is part of the associated and attached and accepted risk of any organization of any variety. And I submit that their position on that is completely incorrect.
Thank you, Mr. Seebeck. Mr. Rutledge.
Okay, given that we will be discussing this later on, let me simply thank Scott and Brody for bringing this to our attention, and mention to them that I myself have had to struggle with the temptation to forget libertarian principles and fall into the ways of the control freak party. And it's very important that we be reminded of that from time to time. So thank you both very much.
Thank you very much. You're on the East Coast for taking the time to come and speak to, a party that you really have no connection to. I deeply appreciate it. And again, I'll call it one moment, Mr. Elwood. And again, you're more than welcome to stay, because if you're just interested in the process, Mr. Elwood.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to reply to Mike quickly, not to draw this out, but so there's no misunderstanding on my view of expulsion powers inside a party. I specifically tried to craft what I was saying by pointing out that giving it to an executive board is almost always a bad decision. I've it's not that I haven't thought about, you know, whether this power should exist or not, or not well read and how organizations operate. You know, I'm on the board of the Mises PAC, and I'm very familiar with how these things work within organizations. But at the same time, we are not a private institution. We're political parties. And second of all, that the body itself, I think, is the one who has that power. And I think Scott may agree with me there. I don't want to speak for Scott, but what I was trying to get at was giving this power to an executive board. I think is almost always to the benefit of extremely bad actors who are willing to use that power to get any gain by which they can, which we've seen it time and time again around the country, and any wholesale mass essentially expulsions, whereas I guess the good guys, if you will, are very targeted and I think just expulsions. So I was just pointing out that giving this power to an executive board is a bad idea. I don't think the body, of course, I think should have that power, and I think they do in Robert's rules. So I don't think no expulsionary power should exist. I don't think it's a good idea to go forward. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Elwood. Again, we appreciate your time. We are going to move on the agenda, and I'm just checking my emails to see if any other committee members. No. If anyone here, or Wayne, if you're listening,
Yeah.
Do you have a means to reach out to Kyle? Or I don't know if you know any of the other members of the committee, Mason.
If you reach out to Kyle, I have his number.
Yeah, because I would like to have more of the committee present, if possible.
I can't get into the meeting.
Why not?
No.
Okay. All right, so we are going to continue, and there's so many documents floating around that things can be a bit difficult. If you remember from last time, we were considering a lengthy proposal to add dues paying membership, and we were considering it seriatim. And we were on section 4, and we passed everything except for the portion. Well, we passed part of the portion having to do with how we were going to define the dues period. And that's where we left off. We left off that we all agreed that anyone who felt strongly would come with their proposals for that section. And that's where we would start. And then we would continue with my original proposal, which was moved seriatim. When we're done considering that entire proposal seriatim, we will then vote as a whole to adopt or not. It is at that point that an entire substitute for that proposal would be in order. And the reason I am explaining this is that a substitute was submitted by Mr. Seebeck. I just wanted to indicate when that would be in order. We have to finish going through the primary proposal seriatim first. I don't know if there's any questions on that process. Is my screen showing where the agenda is?
It is showing the
Yes.
agenda, but it's not showing the proposal where it was left off.
Yeah, I don't have that up yet. Oh, Wayne, if you could mute, please. And seeing as how Wayne just joined just for sake of completeness, I'd like to give him an opportunity for public comment if he has any, because he was having problems getting the meeting. Did you have any public comment, Mr. Harlos?
I do not.
Okay, he said no, because his mic was off. Okay, perfect. Okay. So I'm going to have to switch back and forth here. Well, first, let me pull this up. What's on the screen right now, where it says section 2, sustaining membership, and it says dues have an anniversary date of each year. That's actually what we passed. I can take that off of red, but that's what we passed. And we were all told to bring in whatever amendments, whatever we might have to proposal B, be it adding to that section or proposing a substitute. 1 second here. It's D. Is it B or is it D? I think I messed that up. Down here. No, that's annual conventions. Okay, never mind. I got it. So I am moving to substitute where my substitute would strike out dues have an anniversary date of October 1st of each year. And instead, and I'm going to put this in purple because things get very confusing when you're dealing with a substitute. And I am moving instead to substitute. Dues must be paid in a single payment at least once every 365 days and expire on the anniversary date of the last payment of at least that amount. Smaller donations are not counted as payment towards a cumulative dues amount. And with it being, I'll speak to my substitute in a moment, but I want to explain the process. When there is a substitute, both the primary, and the primary so far is just to leave it as dues have an anniversary date of October 1st each year with nothing else, unmolested, and the substitute are both open to secondary amendment. So if someone has something else they would like to propose for B, it would be in order to move that as an amendment. Or if someone would like to amend the substitute, that would also be in order. So I'd like to explain my reasoning for the substitute. After talking with Ken Molman and the CRM and what was going to be easiest to implement, the CRM will not do pro rata. We would have to do that separately. And I do see we have another guest that joined us, but we're past the time, Janelle, for public comment. I do think Janelle is also from Massachusetts. I do think Brody and Scott had covered the points, but I do thank you for coming.
Yeah, no worries. I got in a little bit late, so.
Yeah, we kind of moved on from that point, but I do thank you for thinking of us. But Brody and Scott, I think, did a very good job of communicating some member perspective from Massachusetts and their experiences.
Okay, awesome. Well, have a nice night.
You too. Thank you so much, Janelle.
Yep, bye-bye.
Okay, so after talking with Ken Molman, pro rata is not possible. I'm opposed to having a fixed anniversary date without pro rata because you will have people who won't join until after that date. They're not going to pay the full dues amount for a partial year. They're just not going to do that. And after talking with Mr. Molman, I'm convinced that pro rata could just be a big problem and a complication. While I have no doubt that if Mr. Hirschman was treasurer, for life, we would have no problem doing it, but we don't know who our next treasurer is going to be. We're going through an audit committee report right now. We obviously have not done things entirely by the book already. I don't want to throw another monkey wrench in it. We really need to get our financial house in order, and I'm not willing to throw in a manual pro rata that Civi CRM cannot do. So if pro rata is not possible, then you have to have differing anniversary dates. Civi CRM handles that properly, but I capitulated to a rolling anniversary date after talking to Ken Molman. I was opposed to that just in general, but I want this to pass. I want it to be easy, and a rolling anniversary date is the thing that makes it easiest to implement. Mr. Seebeck.
There we go. I'm sorry, was muted. I just have a question. Are we able to track rolling anniversary dates for everybody?
Civi can. So say, as an example, you join on December 1st and you pay a single payment of $25. And then in February, so your anniversary date will, well, actually, let's just say today. Why make up hypothetical? Say you join the party today. So January 15th, 2023, your anniversary date when you join and pay your $25 would be January 15th, 2024. Say on March 1st, you pay another $25. Your anniversary date will be moved up to March 1st, 2024. Civi does this automatically.
Okay,
So I'm settling for something in language that isn't one of my, ideologically preferred, but it's what's doable and sustainable. So I compromised on something I really didn't want to see after talking on the technical end of things. If delegates in the future don't like this, they can change it right now. Here's a reality. National lost its technical staff. With Andy Burns resigning, this year is not the year to try to throw a complication at National. I think all that will happen is that Colorado will get frustrated and go off the CRM. The current board of Colorado already is not a fan of the CRM. I don't want to give them an excuse to get off the CRM. I tend to believe the CRM is good for Colorado and good for the entire party as a nation, and purposely throwing a monkey wrench in it is tipping the scales. We should, as a bylaws committee, I believe, have an eye to make it as easy as possible. Mr. Hirschman.
Yeah, the standalone that El Paso had, when you did memberships, there was a renew option. And I'm pretty sure if you did a renew, you didn't change your anniversary date. I could be wrong, but I think that was the way it worked. And I'm surprised that that the current version the state's using is different.
Well, we don't have memberships at the state, so do you mean national?
Well, yeah, I mean, the system that the state would be using, which is the national system. Yeah, it's.
Yeah, national has rolling anniversary dates. If you're a national party member, which is $25, the situation I just described is how it works nationally. If you join the national party today, pay $25 and then paid another $25 in March, your membership date your expiration date would move forward. In fact, national is more complicated, is they count any $25, not in a single payment, in any 365-day period. But it's set up that it can do either. Mr. Hirschman, your hand was still raised. Mr. Rutledge.
So, give me a better understanding. Let me offer an example that in 3 or 4 months, I'm likely to send National $50 for the signature collecting efforts. Is that going to be counted extending my anniversary date or?
Yes,
Okay.
it's a donation to the party. It doesn't have to be designated as dues. They do it by amounts.
Okay, so anything more than the basic amount is also extends the
Yes.
date. Thank you.
Yeah. What doesn't is if you're, and this don't hold me to, this is my understanding, but this is more of a staff thing. I think if you don't technically buy anything from the LP store, it's like considered a donation, but it's not really considered a donation that extends your dues. That's my understanding. I'm not entirely clear on that. The National Bylaws Committee is trying to get an answer on that, but let's forget about merchandise on National LP. This is, that shouldn't extend it. And my intent here is for it not to extend it here. So did you have something further, Mr. Rutledge?
Well, yes, thank you.
Okay. All right, is there further debate or amendment to either the primary proposal or my substitute proposal? Okay, what we are voting on now first, it's a two-step process, is shall the substitute become the primary proposal? Be aware that once the substitute becomes the primary proposal, it cannot be amended further except to add language or through a reconsideration. However, if when we're considering the rest of the larger proposal seriatim, if we change some other sections that then make this an essentially different question than we started with, then it would be open for amendment. I know that gets kind of technical, but I just want to let you guys know it's kind of a speak now or hold your peace moment. All right, is there any objection to the substitute becoming the primary motion?
Objection.
Okay, we will take a roll call vote. So what we are voting on is shall that purple language become the primary proposal for that section? If you vote yes, we still have to vote to adopt it. And it won't be a final adoption vote because we are considering seriatim. We still have to go through all of the other paragraphs in this proposal, and there will be an opportunity at the very end to amend the whole thing further. If we vote no, we're left with dues have an anniversary date of October 1st each year, and there would need to be further amendment to make that a complete thought. So we are voting on shall the substitute become the primary. Mr. Rutledge. Did I lose you, Mr. Rutledge? I see a blank screen. We'll go to Mr. Seebeck,
Nope.
Mr. Wark,
Yes.
Mr. Hirschman,
Yes.
Mr. Schallhammer,
No.
Mr. Rutledge.
Yes.
Okay, it is 3-2. The substitute becomes the primary. I will not vote. So I will now take this off the screen here because that is now off the table, and I'll put this in blue since it has become the primary. So now we are voting on whether or not we adopt this language into the larger proposal. Again, there will be another opportunity at the very end to amend the whole thing, but this is adopting it seriatim as part of the larger proposal. Is there any objection to adopting this as part of the seriatim larger proposal?
Objected.
We're going to take a roll call vote. Mr. Rutledge,
No.
Mr. Wark,
Yes.
Mr. Hirschman,
Yes.
Mr. Schallhammer.
No.
Tie vote. I will vote yes. It's
I
3-2.
didn't vote.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Seebeck.
No.
Okay. Never mind. So it's tied, it fails. We're left with nothing because we've already deleted the other language. So we're left with a incomplete proposal. Is there another motion for B? And there's something I need to let the committee know here. Something I told you incorrectly before. I went and investigated it further because as I sat and was looking at this bylaws proposal, and I consulted folks on the Roberts Rules Forum, and that is this. I was asked before, how many people does it take to submit a minority report? I put our bylaws language in the forum, looked at Roberts, and I said, well, obviously if 2 people sign it, it's self-evidently valid because 2 members could just submit. But in looking at the language, there is no minimum number. Any one member of this committee can submit a minority report. And that was the conclusion. Now, hopefully there would be more than one member, but any one member has a right to submit a minority report. I am putting the committee on notice that I will be submitting a minority report for this language. And if anyone wishes to join me on that minority report, I welcome your signature. Is there any different motions for this section? Because right now we have no way to define our membership.
Let me clarify something. When I said no, I meant I had no objections. Is that how you interpreted it?
No, I interpreted it as you being opposed.
Oh, okay. My apologies.
Well, this
Please reverse
makes,
my vote.
well, I announced the results. So here's,
Okay.
here. However, we're in a problem here where we don't have any language. No one's rights will be violated if it's adopted out, because someone could still propose a substitute. A substitute is fully in order. Since you had a fundamental misunderstanding and I'd invite the body to appeal my ruling, I'm going to retake this vote. Does somebody appeal that?
I have a point of parliamentary inquiry first.
Yes, Mr. Seebeck.
The vote as it currently stands was a tie vote, is that correct?
Well, let me see. I crossed it out. I'm not going by the prior. I think I just start over. Other people might vote differently. I'm not holding them to their prior vote.
Well,
But-
the question is, if it was a tie vote and it failed, then who is the prevailing side for a motion to reconsider?
The noes.
Then I so move to reconsider to get this vote correct.
Thank you, Mr.
I'll second.
Seebeck. No seconds are required on committees. Is there any objection to moving to reconsider this vote on the basis of a member misunderstanding what was being voted on? Hearing none, it actually puts it back up for debate. So I do have to ask, is there any further debate before we move into retaking the vote?
I'd just like to say this is a pretty good solution, I think.
Thank you, Mr. Hirschman. We will move to retake the vote. What we are voting on, a yes vote, and I probably didn't explain it properly, Mr. Rutledge. A yes vote would put this into the larger proposal that at the end, there can be an entire substitute for the larger proposal. So this doesn't make it permanent yet because we still have yet to vote on the entire proposal. We're voting seriation. So a yes vote would put this into the seriation proposal. Mr. Rutledge,
Yes.
Mr. Seebeck,
I'm sorry, what the vote is to reconsider?
no, there was no objection to the reconsideration. We're now retaking the vote.
Oh, okay, abstain.
Mr. Wark,
Yes.
Mr. Hirschman,
Yes.
Mr. Schallhammer.
Yes.
Okay, that is 4 yes, 1 abstention. I will not vote. So this then goes into the larger proposal, which I need to pull up because things get a little hairy here. Bylaws Committee. Give me 1 moment. Ugh, my computer is pending on agenda. I am sorry that my computer is a little slow. I think it's because I have both. I'm on 2 Zoom and Wayne's on Zoom as well. I'm not, you don't need to get off, Wayne.
Turn off the TV.
Okay, what is it at here? I think it's various dues proposals. Yes, I already stuck it on here. Okay, perfect. Okay, we already passed out of seriatim the remainder of section 4. So we are moving. What? I am like literally absolutely confusing myself here. Give me one moment. Oh, okay. We're moving to proposal, what fixed due date? Those were alternate proposals. Give me 1 second. I need to figure out where we're at because
I see a grammatical error or issue right where you were there at 2,
on the one we just passed.
the one that was on the screen before.
Oh yeah, we're not at that, so we can fix that, but I'm trying, this is what I'm looking for, I think. Hold on, I want to look at the names. I should have lettered these, not add officers. We're looking for add dues. Not various dues proposals, proposal to add dues. Here's what I was looking for. Okay, so this is where we were at last time so this time we have struck that out. We have this language instead right here. Let me. What did I just do? Don't want highlight. Where's, oh, there's font color. It's opposite than it is in Word. Okay. That different font's going to bother me, but that's okay. So we had gotten all through the rest of section 4. We had stopped to go back to B. So now we need to look at the proviso that I was proposing to attach to this proposal. The proviso reads, these provisions will go, oh, and Mr. Fure is now here. This mandatory proviso says these provisions will go into effect. Nope, this is a bad proviso considering the language we just changed. Did I have a new proviso? I did not. We're going to need to amend this proviso. This proviso presumed a fixed date of October 24th. I'm going to read it as it reads, so we'll need to amend it. It originally said these provisions will go into effect beginning October 1st, 2023. Actually, no, this proviso still works, except that all dues paid between the time of passage of these changes to October 1st, 2023 will have an anniversary date of October 1st, 2024. This still works. I remember I decided to keep this into place even without a fixed anniversary date. The argument for it is we don't want people to all of a sudden turn into non-voting members of the convention if this passes, which will happen if we don't have a proviso. All of a sudden, we don't. The only people who would remain voting members would be those who are National Party members. So it's not like it would be, if for some reason we forgot to move the proviso, we still have voting members, but it'd only be like 10. So I wanted them to not go into effect till October 1st and give people a free period of time to encourage them to pay their dues right away. So, you know, on October 3rd, when we're all home from the convention, anyone who pays their dues between this transition period from a non-dues paying structure to a dues paying structure, anyone who pays this one time only between October, whenever this passes, October 1st, if it's heard on the 1st, and October 1st, 2023, will all be treated as if they paid their dues on October 1st, 2023, to incentivize people to get on board early, because for this 1 year only, they'll get some free months. And it gives time for the board to get the website updated, to make sure Civi CRM is working properly, that National knows about this. We can send out we can send out emails, we can fundraise, whatever, it gives us a period of time with an incentive, a period of people to be an early adopter. Is there any debate or discussion on this proviso? Mr. Seebeck?
So with this proviso, does that mean that everybody starts becoming paying members as of October 1st and their anniversary dates let's say everybody signs up all at once and have a mass on October 1st of anniversary dates?
Okay, I see your point. It doesn't do exactly what I said, does it? Because it wouldn't go into effect beginning October 1st. Actually, I'm gonna, in case you have an amendment, I'm not gonna certainly jump ahead of you. I have an amendment to this to have it do, talking things out helps because it doesn't do exactly what I said. And
I
for,
don't
and,
have an amendment.
okay,
I was confused by what would happen on October 1.
yeah, this was originally written when we had that. And so actually, I would like to change this to these provisions will go into effect. I'm going to strike beginning October 1st, because you're correct, we will have no dues paying member until October 1st. And in some later amendments, there's some rights like to special conventions and things that dues paying members have. What if, whatever, I want us to have dues paying members immediately. So let me hit format, text, strike through, bold, I mean, yeah, red. And I want to put will go into effect at adjournment sine die. So they'll become a member, but their expiration date for this one time only is extended to October 1st, 2024. That, whoops, that does what I intended it to do. Does that make more sense, Mr. Seebeck?
I think so, but I really didn't have an alternative. I just didn't understand what was happening. So let's see, the perfect sandy die, and that gives, let's see, we got 2 days. Yeah, that's fine. That makes sense, I think.
Mr. Rutledge?
And that change would mean that early dues are not an exception anymore. So take the except out. Take the word except out.
I'm sorry?
Take accept that out, because early dues are not an exception anymore.
I have to confess, I have no idea what you're saying.
I'm saying have the whole thing read, these provisions will go into effect at adjournment sine die. All dues paid between the time of passage of these changes to October 1st, 2023 will have an anniversary date of October 1st, 2024. Just have that as a whole independent sentence all to itself.
Okay, I understand what you're saying, but I don't think that does what you say. I think it actually creates a conflict. They can't both go into effect and extend an anniversary date. The extension, because part of the things that go into effect, say your anniversary date is 365 days from the date of your payment. The proviso would then conflict with itself and could potentially be null and void. It has to say these provisions go into effect, except this one part, which has this ramp up time.
My apologies. I keep forgetting you have professional experience in the legal field.
I like the adjournment.
Mr. Hirschman?
The adjournment's an interesting word.
Oh, yeah, like it's, somebody, Yeah, I can't remember. There's a funny error in the national bylaws minutes. Sylvia sent me a copy of it, was like, oh God, I wish instead of unanimous, she put unanimous. I'm like, all the rodents are in agreement. Okay, I fixed that, Mr. Hirschman. Mr. Rutledge, your hand was still raised.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, is there any further debate on this proviso? Well, first, is there any objection to the amendment to the proviso? And then we'll be back to the proviso as amended. Okay, seeing none, then I'll make that just part of it. Is there any further debate on the proviso as amended?
I have a question as to why we even need a proviso here.
Because otherwise, the minute a bylaws passes, they go into effect later on. You'll see that only sustaining members have the right to vote at convention. So if it goes into effect immediately, all of a sudden, nobody will be a dues paying member. No, all the delegates will be decredentialed.
Oh, I thought the default was things go into effect at adjournment.
No, not bylaws go into effect immediately. That's a real bad mistake that can be made by bodies.
Okay, thank you.
That's why, just as an FYI, why it says our officers take effect at adjournment in our bylaws, because otherwise, the minute a new chair is declared elected, they're chair. Unless your bylaws or you have a proviso that says otherwise. So a lot of people who don't know that can really mess things up. But generally, if your bylaws committee doesn't know that, your delegates don't either. And everyone just goes on their merry way, but you can mess up a society with that. Okay. Did we get through the basic member portion? Yeah, we did. Never mind. This is all the old language. What did I do here? Okay, this is all the old language. And now we're moving to, that's basic membership. We did that. We did the sustaining membership. I don't know why I had that in there twice. Okay, now we're moving on to changes to Article 5, affiliates and development groups.
Didn't you just scroll past the thing that said dues expiration date?
That was, no, that's language that we already disposed of. This is the old working document from last time.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, and I had it copied and pasted on there twice for some reason. My mistake. So we now passed, not ultimately, but by paragraph, everything in section 4, membership. So now we're moving on to related changes throughout the rest of the bylaws. So the next related change I was proposing as part of that larger motion was under Article 5, affiliates and development groups. This is related in some ways, but I will candidly confess it goes a little bit beyond. You know, we can decide what we want to do. And it deals with how affiliates define their membership. So I am looking, or part of the motion is to strike out everything that's currently in section G and replace it with, affiliates must require at least party membership in the state party. And remember, party membership is basic. It's registered Libertarian, not dues. Affiliates must require at least party membership in the state party as a requirement for membership and for service on their governing board, and may establish a due structure of their own as a requirement for voting rights or service on their governing board. So it doesn't say that in order to be an affiliate member, you have to be a dues paying member of the state party, but it does say you have to be a registered Libertarian. We used to allow affiliates to have unaffiliated rather than Libertarian as members. I don't know why we ever did that, but since we're dealing with membership, I think this is the time to change that. However, I do have a proviso because this could require if we force this, it would require changes in affiliate bylaws, and I'm not looking to boss current affiliates. Like, if they don't want to change their bylaws and they have something different, let them stay. So I put mandatory proviso. Affiliates who had different membership requirements in their bylaws complying with the prior membership provision at the date of adoption of this amendment shall be grandfathered in until such time as, actually, I want to, well, this is already moved. There is an amendment I'm going to make. It says until such time as their bylaws have changed. I don't mean to say any change to their bylaws, like the next time they amend their bylaws, they have to fix this. I mean to say their bylaws regarding membership are changed. I'm actually going to move that amendment right now, and I'll ask if there's any debate. So it allows existing affiliates, if they want to continue to allow unaffiliates as members. I don't want the delegates to be bossing current affiliates, but I do want to have future affiliates to have to require libertarians. We're looking to grow this party, not unaffiliates. Like, people need to be libertarians. So first of all, before we get to debate on the main thing, which is the change with the proviso, is there any objection to me clarifying by amending the proviso? And I see someone else from Massachusetts has joined us. Paul, Brody and Scott were here for public comment. I know the time zone things, and we have moved on past that point. We do appreciate you being willing to come to speak to us, but we've moved on past that point, and Brody and Scott did a very, very good job. But everyone say hi to Paul.
Hi, Paul.
Okay. And you notice his hashtag 47 Mass.
Sorry, I missed it.
That's okay. I mean, you're always welcome to hang out, but I'm sure you got better things to do than hear Colorado quibble.
Yeah, I'll catch up another time. You guys
All
have
right.
a great one.
All right, thank you, Paul.
Bye.
Okay, so is there any objection to my amendment to the proviso to make it clear that I'm referring to the membership provisions of an affiliate bylaws, not any amendment to their bylaws? Okay, seeing none, this will be then as amended. So now debate is open up to the entire proposal. Make that blue. Give me one sec. Is there any debate on this proposal? Is there any objection to this proposal with the proviso? Right, hearing none, we're going to move on to the next one, which is Judicial Committee. There's two changes. We'll do them separately. This first one is just a conforming change. Earlier, we passed as part of the seriation that the Judicial Committee would hear challenges to membership status. So we did need to add that officially to the duties of the Judicial Committee. And the numbering, I know, is off here. It'll be renumbered properly in the actual proposal. When you do things in Google Docs, it doesn't like playing nice with Word. So is there any objection to this amendment?
Well, should we have this in both places? Seems like this is the place where it belongs.
The other, yeah, I do think it needs to be in both places. That's really all I can say. But I could see your point. I do think for clarity, though, it needs to be in both, but I do see your point. What I would suggest, Mr. Hirschman, since I think everyone agrees it needs to be here, that we seriation pass it here. And then when the entire proposal is up for amendment, if you wish to move to strike that other one, that's when it would be in order.
Okay, as if I would remember.
I will, I can't promise to remember, but let me make a note of it, and I will certainly try to remember. Mr. Seebeck.
Yes, it actually does need to be in both places. The first area had to do with the right to make the appeal on a challenge to by a member or members regarding that status. But you also have to give the judicial committee the authority to hear that challenge as well. Otherwise, it's just a dead letter on the other side. So it needs to be in both places.
Thank you, Mr. Seebeck. I agree with you. Okay, is there any objection to adding this portion to the scope of duties to the judicial committee? Again, it's seriatim. This isn't passing our final proposal. Okay, hearing none, we're going to move on. I do think Mike had commentary here. I was moving to add the word sustaining. And I think I know what Mike's argument's going to be, and I might end up agreeing, but I'm going to say this is part of the proposal. Mr. Seebeck.
Yeah, it's real simple. If you make it sustaining members, then if a person who is a party member who claims that they're a sustaining member has their sustainment turned down by credentials or whomever, then if you limit the appeal to only sustaining members, they have no means to appeal that ruling. So it needs to be party members rather than sustaining members in order to be able to give them the means to appeal to address that. Otherwise, it's just the credentials committee acts in a way to disqualify them and they have no recourse.
Unless they got another sustaining member to appeal on their behalf. But I'm actually thinking of even broader implications. I actually want to withdraw this change and leave that alone. Is there any objection to me as the maker of this, of withdrawing that change? Hearing none, that one is off the table. Okay, next, under adjudicating cases, we looked at this briefly when Mr. Seebeck asked me about the process, when we added that right to appeal to the judicial committee under membership. And we said we were going to look at this further when we got here, and now we're here. So adjudicating cases, normally they're within 60 days, but I wish to add this language: with the exception of disputes over membership status, which will affect delegate voting status at any state convention, which will be decided during the credentialing process. In the event the judicial committee cannot make a prompt decision regarding challenges to membership status, the question will be put to the delegates with a majority vote resolving membership status in favor of the disputed member.
In favor of or regarding the disputed member?
It'd be in favor of. A majority vote would say that person is a member.
Okay,
Mr. Seebeck.
Yeah. Who presents the case to the delegates? Is it the credential committee or is it the person
The chair.
affected, the chair, or who? And then, so the majority vote, then it would be in favor of the disputed member. From what it said here, how is that handled in the aye or nay vote?
A majority. So the question will be, I'm thinking it through. I don't want to speak out of turn. Because it says that the majority vote resolves in favor, it will, the question would be put by the chair will be, is this member properly a credentialed voting member for purposes of this convention? And a majority
But
vote.
who can make the motion?
The chair would put the question. It's almost like when there's a point of order made to the chair, and the chair goes, the chair is in dispute, is uncertain. as to this point of order. Therefore, I put the question to the delegates. So the chair puts the question to the delegates. The question exists by reason of the dispute. It's not a formal motion like you normally would think. It's in the nature of a point of order that just gets put to the delegates to resolve.
So that puts the obligation on the credential committee to report that there is a dispute then.
I believe the member could as well.
But if the member is, again, if the member is a party member and seeking to have their sustaining membership validated, and they have to be a sustaining member to be at the state convention, how can they put forth the question in the first place?
The chair
would have
puts
to
forth
be-
the question.
How's the chair made aware of it?
Anybody could talk to the chair. You don't have to be a sustaining member to talk to the chair.
I'm just trying to get the pieces of the procedure straightened out here because they're important.
That's
I'm-
how
I'm
that
cons-
that's how I see the procedure.
I'm just concerned that there could
Go
be
ahead.
something dropping the ball, a dropping of the ball somewhere in that chain, which could cause issues. That's why I'm asking these questions.
I mean, I'm open to hearing amendments. I think it's clear or clear, you know, without being overly wordy, but you know, obviously that's the point of the debate at this point.
I think it's clear enough.
Right? Is there any further debate on this amendment? Or proposal, I suppose is a better word. All right, hearing none, we'll move to the next paragraph. Again, there'll be an opportunity at the end. Okay, for B and C, because now we have two phrases we've been using for membership, party member and sustaining member, what party member being the broader category, to just say membership adds an ambiguity. So I wanted to make it clear that the notice is to the party membership. And any party member can attend the hearing. So it would be your basic registered libertarian. You know, we would, I just saw something here though, Mike, I'd like your feedback on. It doesn't say how notice is given. And I think we need to add that because
Where are you looking?
I'm looking at B. It doesn't say how you give 10 days notice to the party membership. And we've always understood that as just being posting on the website, but it doesn't say that. And we don't want some future dispute saying that we needed to have a way to personally give notice to 40-something thousand people.
Okay, I've got a proposal for further amendments to the judicial committee bylaw in a different proposal.
So you think it will be handled there?
I'm not sure if it is. I would suggest that we make a note of this and then look at that when we get there.
Okay, but adding party wouldn't interfere with that.
I don't think so.
Okay, Mr. Hirschman?
Yeah, I think if you wanted to specify how the notice is to happen, you're sort of building in some obsolescence because if there's some other system other than email in the future, then we'd have to change our bylaws.
That's always part of bylaws, like for instance, if the minor party law changes because there's no longer a newspaper of general circulation in Colorado, we're gonna have to amend that part of the notice for conventions. My problem is it's vague. is posting to the website sufficient notice to the entire party membership? And I think we have to specify that in our bylaws. But I think Mike's got a point. He has a different proposal that isn't really dealing. This proposal really should just stick to the membership issue because that's kind of what this whole proposal is about. So right now, I put a pin in the fact that there's probably further work needed here, but all that's needed in the scope of this one proposal about party membership, I think, is adding the word party in both B and C as noted on the screen. Mr. Seebeck.
Yeah, just a quick point. The specific notice about newspaper general circulation is required by the minor party law, which is why that is explicit in its wording in that spot. But in the rest of the bylaws, notice is actually not explicitly defined as to what type of notice is involved. And that was done, I believe, historically on purpose because of exactly the changes. Because, you know, when years ago, before the internet, we had to put notices out in every single paper in circulation in the entire state. And there was all these little ones, this, that, and whatnot everywhere. And getting that notice was a nuclear pain in the neck. Email and the internet have changed that, as has consolidation of newspapers, but the notice terminology was never adjusted to say notice in media form ABC, X, Y, or Z, and we've left it up to the proper discretion of the communications director, then media director, to get the notice out to the appropriate ways on the public side. Within the membership side, it was usually done via mailer or later on email as they got developed. So I think leaving it vague should be all right.
I actually don't, but we're gonna fix this later when
We'll
it
deal with
comes
that
to.
later.
Yeah, but you'll see in a coming up soon that I deal with convention notice. But let's just, so is there any objection though to adding the word party in these two places just for what we're dealing with right now? Seeing none, we'll move on. Okay, under meetings of the board, since you're required to be a sustaining member of the party to be a board member, I'd like to move Article 8, Section E, and strike out the word that should be in red. Any active member of the party may attend the board meetings as a proxy to any sustaining member. Mr. Seebeck?
Oh, sorry, I didn't lower my hand.
Okay, is there any objection to this change? All right, seeing none. Now here's where we start getting into notice, and there's more provisos. I think notice is coming up. So part of the whole point of adding dues paying membership. So under Section 1, annual conventions, Part D, wish to add the word sustaining to this section. So it'll be a sustaining member having been so for at least the 90 days immediately prior to the business session of the convention. And later on, when it's talking about the board's ability to cap delegates, it used to say that will ensure fair representation of the party membership. Change it to say that will ensure fair representation of the sustaining party membership, because that's who's entitled. That's the voting group. Any debate on these changes? Oh, and there's a proviso. Even though we've done this with the earlier proviso, I want to be like double padlock sure we are not divesting people of their voting membership mid-convention. So I also have a mandatory proviso for this proposal that says all provisions regarding conventions and delegate eligibility that have changed do not go into effect until after adjournment sine die of this convention. Mr. Hirschman.
Yeah, I don't think that our party members should have to pay $25 a year just to vote in the conventions. At the business meetings, business sessions.
Thank you, Mr. Hirschman. I will respond. That's the whole reason that there was a push to add sustaining members, is because right now we do not know who our members are. We can't market to them. The convention committee cannot plan properly because we really don't know how many people are going to show up. In theory, 40-something thousand people are entitled to show up at our convention. Even if 500 people showed up, we would be screwed. We would lose our deposits. We've been playing with fire this entire time because we plan conventions based on trends, not based upon data. If we have a sustaining membership, and people should have skin in the game in order to vote for officers and amendments to the bylaws, we now know the maximum number of people, and it's a doable number that can appear at our next convention, and the convention committee can then plan much more accordingly, and we can market the convention to them. This is what near 85%, I think was the figure I gave last time. Any state party that has dues paying members, and by the way, we already provisionally passed this earlier in the seriatim, where it said the rights of basic members and sustaining members. It said basic members can attend basically board meetings and serve on state level committees. Sustaining members can be delegates at national and state conventions and serve on national level committees. So this is just making this conform with what we already passed seriatim. To not put that here would put the two provisions in conflict. But there's no purpose to having a sustaining membership if it isn't ultimately about voting rights at convention. I can't think of a single state party that has a dues paying membership that doesn't make that a requirement for voting at convention. That's kind of the whole point. And yeah, anyway. Mr. Hirschman's hand still raised, and then I have Mr. Rutledge.
Okay, thank you. Since our last meeting, the point has been raised by Mr. Montoni, I believe, suggesting $60 a year for the dues. And given that money is fungible, there's no guarantee that it's not going to go even higher, which would make us just another wealthy only political party.
Mr. Rutledge, that sounds like an argument against the dues in general. This committee isn't proposing $60. This committee is proposing $25 so far. And it would be out of order for anyone on the floor to move to make it higher. It would be out of the scope of notice. Unless Mr. Montoni got another member to sign off on a member provision, which he's given no indication that he's going to do. With the way it is right now, the members could amend that number down. They cannot amend it up.
Thank you.
And the board can't, by the way, either. That amount can only be amended by 2/3 of people at a convention. It's not in the power of the board either. Okay, anything further on this proposal, including proviso?
If I may, I'd just like to say that I would hate to see this cause a reduction in our membership.
Just in response to that, I'll say, do we really have 41,000 members that we have no idea? We've never seen them darken a single door. And should somebody who's never done a thing. And again, this also helps to prevent against party takeover. That is part of it, where you don't have, you know, people who don't have to pay any money that can just come in and take over the LP. We would notice, and again, I had mentioned way back in the beginning of the argument of this thing, that provision in there that was put in by Mr. Orick, that the board could cap the number of delegates from each county. It is provided that was provided in the call to convention as an anti-takeover provision. His intent was that the board should be leading up to convention, perhaps in the 6 months leading up to, 6 months leading up to that seasoning period, be watching the registrations from each county. And if there was a suspicious jump in the registration, invoke that provision. We don't do that. We don't monitor registrations like that, and it costs $50 a pop, and those registrations are old. That is an inadequate, even though I understand his intention, it's inadequate. But one thing we would notice is a week before the seasoning deadline, 100 members joining from a certain county. We would notice that because it goes through our treasurer. This makes that provision meaningful.
Well, these, of the 40,000 or however many it is, they may not be activists, but most of them vote. And that's worth something.
Right, they can attend meetings, they can serve on state level committees if they get active. But if all they're doing is voting, this doesn't take a damn thing away from them. Okay, I'm seeing that there is, well, here's my question. We already passed this earlier. Not past, but past seriation. To not insert it here just creates a conflict. What I would say is persons who are opposed to that being a requirement for convention when this entire proposal is going to get passed as a whole, as be it this proposal or perhaps a substitute proposal, which Mr. Seebeck had put us on notice of, that you either just vote it down and say, we're not going to bother with dues, or amend it further from there, because it would create, this is, I'm almost at the, I'm pretty much, I'm going to make this ruling by the way, because I'm going to give you opportunity to vote down the whole idea when we open the whole thing up. This is a conforming amendment to one that we passed earlier, because we already passed a paragraph earlier saying the right to vote at convention is sustaining members. Adding the word sustaining here is a conforming amendment that I don't think needs a separate seriation vote. The solution, if you don't want this, is when I open the whole proposal up to amendment, is to strike that earlier section or amend it, and then it will get amended down here as well. But I am ruling that this is a conforming amendment. Mr. Seebeck.
Yeah, just to clarify something, we have defined a sustaining member at this point in this proposal as being what? Just for clarity.
$25 a year.
Does it
A
include the
party
life
member,
mem-
a registered libertarian who pays dues in the amount of $25 a year.
Does that include live members?
Yeah, and national life members.
Okay, okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Just being clear.
And national life members. Okay, so I'm ruling this a conforming amendment. There will be an opportunity at the end to take a hatchet to that idea, but we already passed that idea seriation. So, and this as well would be a conforming amendment. However, the next one would not be. Wait, no, I think these are all conforming amendments. Let me go up to show you what I'm talking about. And again, you will still have an opportunity. It's just not the time right now to do it. Let's go back up to the top here. I want to show you what I'm talking about. Only sustaining members, and we've already passed this seriation, only sustaining members are eligible to receive the party nomination for partisan public office, voted as a delegate at any state conventions, be elected as a delegate to national party conventions, or be elected as the state appointee to any national party committee, subject to any further express limitations in this bylaws. A sustaining member was defined as sustaining members are party members, meaning registered libertarians, who pay yearly dues of $25, or party members who are like members in the National Libertarian Party. So everywhere in the rest of this proposal, the word sustaining is inserted before the word member for any of these functions. Since this is already passed, those are conforming amendments. You will have an opportunity at the end to defeat that by going back to this section here and striking it, amending it, or voting the entire proposal down. That will be your opportunity, and I will explain that to you when we get there. Okay, so here, partisan office, adding sustaining, these are all conforming amendments. Same thing here with national convention delegates, because we already passed that. We're just adding the word sustaining where that would apply. And same thing with these committees. These are all conforming amendments. All right, you're going to have your chance, because we are now at the end of this proposal, but I had some stray language here. I'll get your hand in one moment, Mr. Seebeck. I want to take out where I had things after going. Oh, this was the clean copy. I get it. Okay. I need to go put this down here. Yeah, this is what we changed. I need to. Okay. All right. Let me, I need to change that proviso down here as well. Okay, I'm going to take out that clean copy of the language. That was just for when we were dealing with that one section. Okay, so now we went through seriation, the entire proposal. Where we are at is we are now at the entire proposal, meaning any section of it is now fully open to amendment. The entire thing can be substituted. Mr. Seebeck.
Yeah, can we scroll down to that? I believe it was the section D of new text right there. Sustaining members eligible to receive party nomination, etc. We're missing a piece there.
Go ahead.
We've added a conforming amendment for sustaining membership to be on the state committees, but it is not listed in this item D.
We didn't for the state committees.
That's what I'm saying.
Party members up here, basic members are eligible to serve on state level committees.
Scroll down then please into the committees section.
Sure. Because I could have messed that up. And if so, we need to fix that. Conventions,
Keep going.
special conventions, candidates, national delegates, committees, national committees.
Below that.
No, that's it. I didn't talk about state committees.
Oh, okay. Then I misread that then.
No problem. Mr. Rutledge?
Madam Parliamentarian, am I correct in thinking that Robert's rules recognize an implicit authority of any officer mentioned in bylaws to create a committee of assistance for him or herself.
Our bylaws recognize that. That's not a Robert's Rules of Order thing. That's currently in our bylaws. We cleaned up that language last week, but that is in our current bylaws. With the exception, I think, of the chair and the vice chair.
Okay. In that case, my next suggestion is that basic membership permits serving on state level and affiliate level committees.
Okay, I think we're having a disconnect here. I mean, I'm more than willing to entertain your proposal, but there's nothing on here prohibiting them. That's up to the affiliates right now. Why do you really want for us to dictate to the affiliates who can serve on committees they may form?
Point.
I'm sorry.
Okay, I would throw my comment.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. And I think what you might have been getting to is, would basic members be qualified to serve, say the communications director starts a social media committee? Yes, they would be qualified to serve on any committees that were formed by directors. Mr. Hirschman.
Yes, I think it's 2D, the one that talks about having to be a sustaining member to be a delegate in the state convention.
Yes.
I would suggest that we strike that vote as a delegate at any state conventions and leave the rest of it there.
Okay. And did you wish to speak to that?
Well, it seems to me that when people go out of their way to become a libertarian and a registered libertarian, and they want to show up at the convention to represent themselves, or perhaps represent, their county or whatever, and they don't know anything about this sustained membership stuff, then they would be prevented from representation. I just don't like the taste of that at all.
Thank you, Mr. Hirschman. I would say people who are showing up at convention and aren't aware of the bylaws are not people that we want voting on bylaws amendments at convention. So I could also tell you, I would not have written any of this if we were going to exclude people as delegates at state convention. If we did not pass a proposal in which that was included, someone else is going to have to present this proposal, because I can't. I don't think we should have dues if that's not a requirement. I don't think there's any purpose to it, complicate our bylaws without really that much benefit to the party. And I'll present a minority report with this, because I would not have spent hours of my life on this to have the main point gutted. It's obviously the right of the committee to do it, but I'm telling you, I cannot in good conscience, I will not in good conscience present that to the delegates. There's no purpose in having sustaining members if we're not limiting for delegates.
There are a bunch of other limitations that would be in effect.
I'm just telling you my personal position on this. I wouldn't saddle the state party with dues and all of this if we weren't using that in part to protect our conventions. It's absolutely no other state party does this. And if we think somehow in Colorado we know better than the rest of the country, like who has 50 years of experience with this, we don't. Mr. Rutledge.
Madam Chair, without offering any opinion as to this particular amendment, one way or the other, I would like to say that I'm willing to volunteer to present the results of the bylaws committee deliberations whenever they do not conform to your sensibilities.
That would be up to the bylaws committee to vote on.
Thank-
And I would be presenting a minority report. What I would suggest is probably the better idea, but it's up to you guys, is that those who think that delegates should not, that this should not be an alternative, should present a minority report to that particular point of view. One way or another, both points of view are going to get heard. It's just a matter of what's the committee report or not. And you guys can vote how you're going to vote. I am going to make somewhat, and I'm conceding right up front, this is a little bit unfair. But we're all colleagues here. To take a proposal that everyone's been very upfront on, what's the purpose of it, and go through all of this only to gut it at the end, is not particularly fair to the people who've been working on this proposal. Even though Mr. Seebeck and I agree on some points where he's going to have an alternative, I really wish the committee had just voted on this up front, that that's not what they wanted, rather than wasting our time. But you have every right to do that. I'm just telling you my personal feelings on it. That at the very beginning, when we talked about adding dues, the purpose of it was openly stated. Nobody hid what they were trying to do. And to have people, I put about 15 hours into this besides the committee meetings. I just think that's extraordinarily disrespectful, and that you should just offer a minority report, or should have just said at the very beginning, we don't want to hear this. And I'd have been okay with that. But after so much invested without this coming up before, I just don't think that's the right way to treat your fellow committee members. It's not against any rule. Like, certainly not against any rule. But I tell you, it leaves a really bad taste in my mouth.
Sometimes it takes a while to mull over an idea.
Well, that's why you have a right to a minority report as well. But okay, Mr. Rutledge, whose
Let me
motion was
simply-
this? Was this Mr. Hirschman's?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, well, this is what we're at. Mr. Rutledge, did you have debate on that?
I simply want to point out that at the beginning, quote unquote, we did not have the cautions of Scott and Brody available to us.
Mr. Rutledge, they did not argue against dues paying membership at a convention, and they would not. I know them well. If you would like to care to say how expulsion relates to this, I'd love to hear it. That is, preventing potential expulsion is a great argument for not having dues paying members at all. I would grant that, but it's not at all related to whether or not you have a vote as a delegate at state convention. It is a
Duly
good
noted.
reason.
Thank you.
Yeah, it is a good reason to say, let's not even open that door and not have dues at all. I would agree. That's a very good reason to vote the entire proposal down. Mr. Seebeck, did you have any thoughts on this?
Just that I think that this amendment's a bad idea and I would vote against it, but
Would anyone else like to speak? All right, we're gonna, obviously there's dissension, and I remind everyone, whichever side comes out on whatever side of this, you have the absolute right to a minority report. And it seems like it won't be minority reports of one people, because it seems that people feel strongly on both sides of this issue. So it looks like either way, this will be heard at convention. Both
Point of
points of
point of
view.
order.
Yes, Mr. Seebeck.
Where are we voting on this, on Mr. Hirschman's amendment at this point? Or did I
Yes,
miss something?
yeah,
Okay.
we're voting on his amendment. I was just
Okay,
letting
thank you.
people know their rights, that people, no matter which way this vote goes, if the losing side, I guess what I'm trying to say, will have a right to a minority report. Mr. Rutledge, we're voting on the amendment. So we're voting, and if this amendment passes, it'll be a conforming amendment that everywhere that appears in relation to conventions will also be struck. So it will trigger conforming amendments. Mr. Rutledge.
Yes. Mr. Hirschman's amendment.
Thank you. Mr. Seebeck.
Nope.
Mr. Wark.
Please, I'm sorry, please remind me, what does the affirmative mean?
The affirmative means you want to strike dues as being required to be a delegate at state convention.
No.
Mr. Hirschman,
Yes.
Mr. Hammer,
No.
Mr. Fury.
No.
I am for once going to vote on something, even though my vote won't make a difference, because that's how strongly I feel about this. I'm voting a no. So it's 5-2, that amendment fails. I'm prompting you, Mr. Seebeck, because I'm not so sure you're perhaps procedurally I didn't explain this well. If you wanted to move your substitute, now is the time to do that.
I so move.
Okay, let's make sure now everyone understands where we're at. Hold on, I need to make that blue. Now, was your substitute for the entire proposal or just the membership part?
The entire proposal.
So you had things that dealt with convention as well?
I did.
Okay, I just wanted to be clear. So hold on, I'm trying to find the agenda. There's the proposal, not that. Not that. Here we go. Okay, what I'm pulling up on the screen. Hold on, I just want to scroll through so I have a sense of where we're at, okay? Just want to see how long, how far, yeah. Goes to national. Okay, state committees. And amendments. Okay, so where we're at, we have the complete proposal that we just went through paragraph by paragraph. Mr. Seebeck is moving to substitute his entire his makes it sound this entire proposal for everything we just went through before. So where we are at procedurally is, since we just went through we went through all the amendments we wish to do to that first one, though I'm going to open it up for amendment one more time. Well, actually, no, Mr. Seebeck, I did, and he moved his proposal. So we now have a primary proposal, which is all of that language we went through, and we have a substitute proposal, which is all of this new language. Because we went through such extensive amendment on the primary, I think we move now to amendment on the substitute. After that, both of them will be open for amendment, and we'll decide between the two competing proposals.
Are we
However,
doing this seriatim as well?
that's where I was getting to. However, we would need to go through this one, seriation as well. Unless, I wouldn't suggest this unless some member moved to dispense of that and it won by majority vote. Actually, no, I think because it's so many different ideas, a single member could demand it. So we need to go through this one, seriation. The intent of this procedure is to have the very best version of the original proposal compete against the very best version of the substitute proposal. And then we decide which of the two proposals we want to adopt. So we're going to start with this one. We probably are going to need to switch back and forth between the two. I'll do that if someone requests. I know I'm going to need to look at that. So part
Does
of the,
Google Docs have a way to do a split screen with two documents side by
No.
side like Word does? Okay.
no. Okay, but I could tell you part of what makes this somewhat confusing is it isn't combining the current language. Like the current language is just all down here in bulk. So it's hard to see.
It's a strike and replace.
I understand. I'm just finding it difficult to see what changed from the original language to this. Whereas the proposal, like this was done, it like kept everything together. But you can present it how you wish. So, this is what makes it. Because it's a strike and replace, I don't think we can go paragraph by paragraph here. We can go section, at least in this section, do the whole section at once.
The first section is actually a strike and replace, but I
Okay.
believe that the way I structured this, if we go down below that section,
Mhm.
that the rest is, keep on going, is not a strike and replace, but it is actually just pieces as we go.
But I think we still can go through it paragraph by. I'm just trying to get a handle on it a little bit. I'm just wrapping my mind around the best way to do it. Just 1 second, in case people are going to want to compare. I want to be at the same place. Okay. All right. So we're starting with the title. Just an FYI, I don't think we're going to get through all this meeting.
Probably not.
So next
We only have
meeting,
an hour.
right? And so next meeting, we'll be back at this portion, and I think a lot of people are going to need to be reminded of where we are at. But so Article 4, it's which is currently entitled members. This would add and dues. Is there commentary on the first change?
Just simple that it's and dues, because section 1 is members, section 2 is dues.
I have one comment to make. I'm not going to move to amend. Dues is part of a membership structure when it exists. I don't think it's necessary to add that, but I'm not going to move to amend. So is there any further comment on that, or can we move past that item? Okay, first Section A, membership in the party is exclusively limited to all registered or pre-registered electors in the state of Colorado whose party affiliation is quote libertarian, end quote, open paren, quote, party members, end quote, close paren. Is there any debate or amendment on this section?
I think it sounds better without the word exclusively in there. I know we've mentioned this before. I have.
Are you making an amendment, Mr. Hirschman?
Okay, I move that we strike exclusively from that first sentence.
Just an FYI, Mr. Hirschman, when we go back to the primary proposal, when that's open for amendment, that wasn't stricken from the other one. It wasn't even moved to be stricken from the other one. It was moved to be stricken from the other one in a different place. So you might want to move that to the primary one as well when we get back to there.
Thank you.
I'll try to remember. Is there any objection to Mr. Hirschman's amendment? Hearing none. Paragraph B. Membership in the party begins upon the elector registering or pre-registering as an elector in the state of Colorado with a party affiliation of quote libertarian, end quote. Any objection to this section? Hearing none. C, membership in the party ends upon the elector changing their party affiliation from quote unquote libertarian. Like FYI, the comma belongs inside the quote marks. Do you have an objection to me just moving that over there as a style, as a grammar thing?
No,
Okay, just wanted to, so we don't leave things hanging for a potential future style committee. Dies, registers or pre-registers as an elector in another state or country, or is otherwise removed from the electors list maintained by the Colorado Secretary of State.
I do have one comment on that one.
Yes,
The term electors list, I was not sure what the correct term is there, but it's in reference to whatever they call the voter roll.
yeah, I don't know either. I would
There's a grammatical thing, I don't know what it's called, where you've got changing at the first thing, which I think it's a gerund, and then it goes to dies and registers. And I think those are all supposed to be the same tense or whatever you call it.
They're all present tense.
Now, one's I see what he's saying. It should be upon the when membership in the party ends when the elector changes their party affiliation, dies, registers, or pre-registers. Otherwise, it would be changing, dying, registering, or pre-registering.
Right.
Then let's make it dying, registering, or pre-registering then.
I'm not going to make an amendment, but I think dying is unnecessary. This, if you remember, that actually came up something similar on that video I had distributed. Again, anyone can feel free to disagree with it. But when he made a joke about where it said, you know, all living presidents get to serve on the executive committee. And he's like, good thing we're safe in the case of a zombie apocalypse.
That guy never understood Chicago voting. It's his first problem. They have dead people voting in Chicago all the time. It's called Democratic Party machine.
I don't think any dead people are going to be attending meetings, serving on state committees, or doing anything that a basic member would have a right to do here. It's not a voting thing, but, oh, you want, let me put in dying. Hold on.
Insert punchline here.
Dying. Registering or pre-registering. Okay. Is there any objection to that conforming grammatical change?
Yes,
Who was that?
John.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Hirschman.
Well, I liked yours better.
Mine was when the elector changes their party affiliation.
Yes.
If anyone prefers that language, I suggest they vote this one down and then move that other one. Because right now, the debate is only on this change here, so that would be outside the scope of this amendment. But I would suggest if someone would prefer the other language, they vote this down, and then Mr. Hirschman will move the other language.
I can appreciate getting the tenses all correct, but just pick one.
Mr. Seebeck, do you object or agree maybe to withdraw your amendment in favor of John Hirschman's in order to gain his support?
What's my amendment?
I thought you moved to make it dying, registering, or pre-registering.
I thought he moved that.
No, you did.
Oh,
Would you
guess-
prefer, we could pretend like it didn't happen and we can change it to membership and the party ends when the elector changes and leave dies
I
register.
don't really care one way or
Okay.
the other. Let's just get the wording consistently correct, okay?
Okay,
However
well,
we get there.
all right, well, I think I tend to agree with Mr. Hirschman that the other one is smoother. Format, text, strike through. Oh, shit, I hate the way it's opposite in Google Documents than Word. I know the blue's a different color. I'm not gonna be able to take it. Let me go put it the right color. Okay, that's better. So instead it will be ends. When, and I wish I could put the strike through in the bar here. So it'd be ends. Come on, you. When the elector oh, you bastard. Here we go. Make this changes. And what changed here, I'm gonna put in purple, is this. And this. So it'll read, membership in the party ends when the elector changes their party affiliation from Libertarian, dies, registers, or pre-registers. Is there any objection to this amendment? Right, hearing none, paragraph D. A party member is eligible to attend party meetings, serve on state level appointed committees, and participate in other party or affiliate activities as determined by their leaderships. I have an objection here with we can't be telling affiliates what to do unless we're going to put in some kind of proviso here, because they might have their own qualifications.
Isn't that covered there? As determined by their leaderships?
Okay, I'm going to leave it alone. I think that language is kind of odd, but I don't have an amendment. Mr. Schallhammer?
Sorry, I motion to strike the last part of that sentence after the comma and participate.
And you would need to add an and before meetings and serve.
Correct, yeah.
Okay. Would you like to speak to that, Mr. Shellhammer?
I just think that affiliate and party activities is kind of broad and non-defining as what certain members can and can't do. So
Yes. Okay, thank you. I'm just trying to get this done here. This would be purple. Is there any objection to this amendment?
Very much so. I wish to speak against it.
Thank you, Mr. Seebeck, go ahead.
If that is put in, then party members would not be allowed to participate in things like manning outreach booths or helping with fundraising phone calls or other activities that are the bread and butter of the party, which they could certainly use to get their feet wet in party activity before ever becoming a sustaining member. That's not a good idea.
I'm going to speak in favor of the amendment. Saying they're eligible to do X doesn't mean they're not eligible to do Y when there's no restriction in the bylaws that say Y is only available to certain people.
I think
Hey.
that goes against against one of the principles of interpretation of the bylaws of that those things which are not explicitly permitted are prohibited.
Not, it's only when you put things in as permitted that don't require bylaws authorization to permit. I do believe you have misunderstood that principle. So in fact, I think adding this language would say that they're not allowed to do anything else unless their leadership gives them permission, even if another member asks them and it's not causing any harm. I actually think this language that we're striking invokes that principle in ways that could have really bad unintended consequences.
Then I would move to amend the amendment
Yes, Mr. Seebeck?
to maintain and participate in other party activities, and then simply stricken out as determined by their leadership. If the issue is who's making the call, then let's remove who makes the call and let them participate.
Just gonna highlight that.
Not quite. Activities is kept.
Oh,
From as determined to the end, that would still be stricken, and the rest of that I would move to keep in.
okay.
If that makes sense, I hope.
Did you wish to speak to that?
I think I just did.
Okay. Mr. Rutledge?
Running candidates for office is an activity. And that's clearly supposed to be reserved for sustaining members.
Yeah, I mean, unless it said, unless otherwise prohibited by these bylaws, I think you could be creating a conflict with convention voting as well. I just don't think this is necessary, and the potential unintended consequences are still there. Like, there's no reason to specify something in the bylaws that's not necessary to be specified in the bylaws. We don't need a bylaw authorization that they can go to a party, can give money. Like, I think this could end up being bad at some point in the future in ways that I can't foresee. Mr. Rutledge, you still have your hand raised?
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
Okay, the vote right now is on the amendment to the amendment, which is to strike from the strike, which means is to retain and participate in other affiliate activities. There's objection to that. So I'll be clear on what we're going to vote on. A yes vote would leave that language in the proposal. A no vote would not yet strike it, but it would leave it in the potential amendment we'd be voting on next. Mr. Rutledge. A yes would leave it. I'm sorry?
Um,
A yes would leave it. A no would still leave it in the amendment that we'd be voting on next, which would be striking the whole phrase. A yes would leave it in.
okay, I'm gonna say no.
I know this gets a little confusing. Mr. Seebeck.
This is gonna sound weird because I proposed this amendment, but I'm gonna vote no on it.
It's. Okay, thank you. Mr. Wark,
Yes.
Mr. Hirschman,
Yes.
Mr. Shellhammer,
Yes.
Mr. Fury.
Sorry, is yes leaving it in or
Yes would leave it in.
yes? Or I'm sorry, I'm gonna go no, actually, sorry.
Okay. It's a tie vote, which means it fails. So that that language is still open for deletion. So now we are on Mr. Shellhammer's. God, I hate this. What am I trying to do? I'm trying to get rid of this. There we go. So now we're on Mr. Shellhammer's proposal to strike that entire last phrase. Is there any further debate? Is there any objection?
Yeah, not an objection, but a question.
Yes, Mr. Hirschman?
I thought state level appointed committees had to be sustaining members?
Well,
No?
this is an entirely new
Oh,
proposal,
true, true.
but even in the other proposal, they did not have to be a sustaining member, national appointed committee. So this isn't a difference between the two proposals. They both have that same thing.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, hearing none, we're moving on. E, a party member may be a sustaining member. Right, hearing none. A sustaining member is a party member that has also paid annual dues, or alternatively is a party member that is also a life member of the National Libertarian Party, or both. And in addition to party member privileges, is eligible to receive party nomination for, excuse me, I've got a frog in my throat, for partisan public office, be a delegate at party conventions, be elected as a delegate to the national convention, be elected to any party office or elected committee, and be elected as a party representative to any national party committee. There's just a point of parliamentary information I want to give that I think might be anticipated or people might be confused. I would not vote for this personally, but it is your right to attempt again to strike the be a delegate at party conventions, if that's what anyone wishes, because it got defeated in the primary proposal doesn't mean it was defeated here. I'm just trying to advise you of your rights. I'm not making any kind of recommendation.
I still don't like it, but I'm not going to make an amendment.
Thank you. Is there any amendments to this section? Hearing none, moving on to the next. A sustaining member who fails to renew their sustaining membership for a dues period or has their sustaining membership revoked shall remain a party member and shall lose all privileges of sustaining membership until they renew or are restored.
Could you scroll to show me where the revoked and restored are mentioned later on?
Right here, I.
So, okay, that's sufficient, I believe. Thank you.
That's what?
That is sufficient. I do not see any need to make any amendment.
I tend to think G and I are related. So before moving, because there is an amendment I'd like to make, but the amendment to G would also be an amendment to I. So I think those two kind of, at least for the purpose of the amendment I want to make, go together. So I'm going to make those amendments at one time. I am moving to strike or has their sustaining membership revoked, moving to strike or are restored, and moving to strike the entirety of paragraph I. I want to get that on the screen before I speak to it. I hate this. Strike through. Did I get it? Yeah. Okay. You know, as was stated by our guests, giving the board authority to expel people is an absolutely horrible idea. It will lead to political witch hunts. There is a past board that would have, I believe, I can't, and it's not everybody on that board. But, you know, when you had a chair that said they were looking to destroy the Libertarian Party of Douglas County, could have easily have done that by trumping up. Cause is so freaking undefined. There will be political witch hunts. We've survived for 50 years and we've had memberships in the past without trying to expel people. The convention delegates already have that right. If somebody needs to be expelled from the party, that should only be considered at a convention. You never give that power to a board. It's nightmare fuel. And all I can say is, have we learned nothing? You get a certain group on the board and they don't like the Mises Caucus, think they're a bunch of racists, they will vote to expel them. We have seen this many times. And an investigation and trial by the board, that doesn't even mean anything. Like, it's not the board, like the investigation is supposed to be an independent committee in Roberts anyway. So even if I was in favor of this, that language is entirely incorrect, and vice versa. Not that I'm obviously biased in this conversation towards the Mises Caucus, but you could get the wrong Mises Caucus people in there who decide, oh, a certain candidate said that they're a libertarian socialist, out with them. We can't have people declaring they're socialists in this party. So many opportunities for absolute abuse. I don't know who would put themselves in that psychological position. This is the biggest argument not to become a sustaining member, particularly if you're a national party member. If this passes, I'm not paying dues to the state party because they can't, revoke a national party membership. I have to say, if this passes, I don't know if I'd be a member of the state party. I am not putting myself in the hands of a fickle board. I've seen what happens here. And with all due respect to Mr. Seebeck, and he's not going to like this comment, but I'm going to say it, we're the ones here in Colorado, they're going to have to live with this. This is awful. Mr. Seebeck.
Well, first of all, I don't take offense to that statement because it's a true statement about the people in Colorado have to live with it. However, you're misrepresenting the whole thing. This is not about expelling somebody from the party. There is no authority granted to the LPCO to do that because of the nature of the registration requirements conferring party membership by the minor party law. So let's not call this expulsion, because that's not what this is. This is about saying that a sustaining member who becomes a sustaining member and wreaks enough havoc that something needs to be done to rein them in, to get them to knock it off, to say, this is how we're dealing with this. If there's an issue about for cause, then I define what for cause is. There's nothing wrong with doing that. But I would remind everybody on this committee, and none of you were around in 2002 when this happened. We had an out of control United States Senate candidate at the top of our party's ticket that year, who was openly calling for the public execution of the incumbent US Senator. And the only methodology we had available to us on that board, which I was on that board, was to try to revoke his certification of nomination for his candidacy. This particular gentleman wound up becoming a major embarrassment to the party. It cost us membership then, it cost us votes then, and it almost cost us certification as a political party, because there was an effort put forth because of what happened a year and a half later to put us into the same department as the major parties, which would have put us in the party in the caucus and assembly system, which would have destroyed us, all out of spite from what happened. This is history, folks. It's there in the party. I lived it. I suffered because of it, because I was the media director at the time, and I went through a ton of criticism because I was instructed by our chair to keep the record corrected by this Looney Tunes candidate's statements. He eventually wound up in prison for threatening a federal judge, okay, after the election. The reality of it is that we need to have a methodology to handle these loose cannons and keep the party's reputation preserved in order to grow effectively. If we do not have the means to determine who our membership is when they act like that, then we've got a major problem, because then any crazy person can go in, pay the $25 to be a sustaining member or whatever the dues will be set to, and then run havoc without any fear of consequence for their actions. Now, I'm sorry, but we stand for having accountability and consequences for our actions, and we stand for the right of the freedom of association of who we attach to our party. That is in our platform. So we need this in there to put our money where our mouth is in terms of what a sustaining member is, to say, no, if you have a vested interest in this party, you also are going to have to behave yourself. Otherwise, we won't have you in that position. We can't kick them out of the party. We can't make them change their voter registration. We can't do that at all. It's not expulsion. But it is a way to say The people who are taking this party seriously as sustaining members also need to have a sense of ownership and proprietarism of that's not a right term, but you know what I'm trying to say, a stake in how this party's outcome and operations happen, so that we know we're getting quality, ethical, professional people run in positions of leadership and close thereby to get the job done. That's why this is in here. If we want to define for cause, then by all means, let's do that in section I. But let's not throw out the baby with the bathwater in the meantime.
Mr. Rutledge?
So raises the question of what exactly is meant by behaving oneself. During the campaign for Colorado Secretary of State, I was branded an election denier, even though that the elections I was denying were much more recent than the 2020 presidential election.
Excuse
I
me,
was
Mr. Rutledge.
denying
I'm
the
having
No
trouble
election.
crosstalk, no crosstalk.
I can't understand what he's
I-
saying.
Then you direct that to the chair, Mr. Seebeck, please. Mr. Rutledge, your connection is super bad. Please try again.
Okay, so during my campaign, I was branded an election denier, even though I had virtually nothing to say about the 2020 election. The elections I was denying were elections, were more recent ones where there was exactly one candidate and the outcome was predetermined before even a single ballot got to any voter. As another example was Rick Stanley behaving himself when he got himself imprisoned for essentially open carry. Will I be behaving myself tomorrow in the Martin Luther King celebratory parade when I carry a sign saying, voting, that we have a moral obligation to disobey unjust laws? I think paragraph is too dangerous.
Thank you, Mr. Rutledge. I do take Mr. Seebeck's correction, though I do think it's somewhat of a distinction without a difference in my argument, that it's not expelling from the party, but it is expelling from sustaining membership. It is removing rights, and it's removing the rights that are meaningful to the activists that show up every single day. And the fact that it doesn't actually remove from party membership goes to my point. Those people allegedly will still be embarrassing because they still will be party members. And that is what the media will report. They are still libertarians. It doesn't give the benefit that Mr. Seebeck is claiming that it would. And it opens the way, because it removes voting membership. If you have a rogue board that happens to be able to have people in positions of leadership, they just rigged the convention by removing all the people that would vote against them at convention. That is exactly what happened in Massachusetts. They removed those 47 people because those 47 people were going to vote to remove them. The fact is, libertarians are a wild and rowdy bunch. Freedom is not a tame lion. Anyone who wants respectability politics, this is the wrong party for them. And seeking to control people through such a vesting of authoritarian power in the board, that isn't freedom of association of the party. That's freedom of association of the board. The convention, which is actually the representatives of the party, the board is just the steward of it between, already has the right to do this. And this past few months, you want to know if we had the wrong board, who would have gotten removed? Our Senate candidate, because an awful lot of people were complaining, including going and complaining to the Daily Beast, that they didn't like what this individual was saying about being a spoiler for the Republicans or whatever comments that people had a problem with. And you want to know what? You have the wrong board today, and the member who went slandering people to the Daily Beast would get removed. And here's the thing, I don't want either of them to have their rights suspended. I think running to the Daily Beast is absolutely disgusting. And if you were to remove somebody's sustaining membership for cause, a very good argument can be made that that's cause. And I still oppose it, even though that's somebody that slandered me. We've got somebody right now who was one of the provocations for the audit committee that has outright libeled our treasurer. But I don't think that person should be removed either, though it's embarrassing and it's accusing somebody of something criminal. Freedom is dangerous. And you're going to have people that you're just going to have to learn to deal with. And revoking their rights is not the answer. And the fact is, the example that was brought up was 2002. So we're going to put this party through all of this and put members in potential danger for something that hasn't happened in 20 years. Sorry, sometimes candidates are going to embarrass you, and there's still going to be libertarians, and the convention can still always remove their sustaining membership if they wish to. That's a right that will still retain with the convention delegates. We don't need this on the board. And here's the thing, you might go, well, it's too late to wait until a special convention. You want to know what? The board, if it felt someone was so embarrassing that the absolute reputation of the party demanded they be removed, they can call a special convention for that. You don't give the board authority to do that. And I noticed the word fear was brought up. No, I don't want our members in fear. That I think that right there is, said it a lot to me. The board is not we. The board does not always speak for everybody. And there was another incident I can tell you where people would have been removed. I wish I could remember the other gentleman. I think he wasn't a member of the party, but Nathan, I don't want to say the member's name. He's not a member anymore, but he was a member of the party that went to do a protest in front of a legislature, and they really caused a big uproar, and the board was almost going to censor them. And if they had removal of sustaining membership, that definitely would have been on the table. And it was just a much more conservative board. And this was, they were protesting about banning edibles that look like gummy bears. And boy, the board was scandalized and thought, what an embarrassment to the party, and actually thought that the board should write a letter of apology to this legislature. Boy, they would have loved to put in that, and we removed them from sustaining membership. Like, I don't have words to express my opposition. Mr. Seebeck.
I congratulate Madam Chair for missing the point. Yes, it happened in 2002. That means it can happen again, because history does repeat itself, and it will happen again. And the reason that this was proposed is because it has happened. And I would also point out something else. Again, if the issue is with giving the board this authority, then amend I to not have the board have that authority and put it in the hands of the convention. If there's a problem with cause not being defined, then let's amend section I to define it. But, and here's the key point, every organization, it doesn't matter whether you're talking a political party, whether you're talking a business, whether you're talking a nonprofit, whether you're talking a social club, or whether you're talking a dog club, it doesn't matter. There is in structuring organizations, and there are books upon books written about this. There is mountains of human resources research on this in Fortune 500 companies to address this indicate that when you organize anything into a structure, you have inherent risk of people within that structure abusing it, and you need to have the ability to address that within the structure. That is what this does. If you want to fine tune it so that the convention takes care of it, fine. If you want to define what cause is, fine. Let's do that. Okay. But I want to point something else about this. Okay. The idea of a sustaining membership being revoked, okay, can happen by the convention. Remember the credentialing vote we talked about a few minutes ago. Okay. That's a revocation. Okay. Does that throw, but we take that out of here, then how do we know what their party status is? Doesn't make any sense. The reality of it is, again, there is an inherent risk when you're dealing with people within here. People could make an argument that the Mises Caucus rigged conventions with their maneuvering to get themselves into power. Okay, I'm not making that argument, but others have. It's all a function of what side you're on when it comes to those types of arguments. But the reality of it is, in 2002, the only thing we could do was revoke Stanley's nomination or censure him, which had the effectiveness of absolutely nothing. And I must correct Mr. Rutledge. Mr. Stanley did not go to federal prison for open carry of a firearm. He went to federal prison for threatening a judge. Yes, he was convicted by a kamikaze jury, by a kangaroo jury in the city and county of Denver for open carry in the city of Denver, even though he was constitutionally allowed to do so because of their city laws. But he also did not have competent counsel to argue the case correctly at the time. I was there. Okay. The reality of it is that if you don't have a way to deal with rogue actors, whether they're deliberately infiltrating or not, you are setting the party up to fall. This provision here allows for that to be addressed. And again, if you don't want to have it in the case of the board, then put it in front of the convention, then amend I to say that. If there's a concern about cause being defined, then let's define it. The purpose here is to fine tune this proposal to make it, as the chair said, the best possible proposal. You don't do that by butchering it. You do it by fine tuning it.
Thank you, Mr. Seebeck. Challenging to credentials is not a revocation because credentials can only challenge by claiming you didn't pay your dues. And that's why even in this proposal, it says regarding the treasurer regarding sustaining membership has to do with paying a dues. That is not a revocation. Here's the thing. We haven't been able to revoke memberships, whatever level it is, for 50 years, and we're still here. The pushing of the panic button is absolutely unnecessary. There will be risks, and whatever happened in 2002, we survived. And there's still a registered libertarian, even if you have this. I don't have to move to make this better. I don't want any kind of revocations in the bylaws because it's already an inherent right of the body. The minute you spell it out, you've opened the door to expand it. And to me, making this better is striking it entirely. Is there anyone further who would like to debate on this? All right, we're going to go to a vote. The vote is on striking the language in red. A yes would strike it. A no would leave it intact. We would then move to H, which we kind of skipped over because G and I are related. So Again, we're voting on striking the language that's in red and strike through. Mr. Seebeck,
Absolutely no.
Mr. Rutledge.
Yes, lose it.
Yeah, yes is the strike. Okay, Mr. Ward,
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Hirschman,
No,
Mr. Shellhammer,
Yes.
Mr. Fury,
Yes.
and I am going to vote on this one, and I'm going to vote yes, 5-2. The language is stricken. We are moving on to number H. Challenges to membership status shall be resolved with the Secretary of State regarding party membership, the treasurer regarding sustaining membership, subject to appeal to the Judicial Committee. Is there any amendments or debate on this item?
I move to amend it.
Yes, Mr. Seebeck.
Okay, there is a wording problem here that as it was read out loud, it became apparent.
That usually happens.
The way as it is written, it implies incorrectly, and it was not my intent, that a resolution with the Secretary of State regarding party membership could be subject to the appeal of the Judicial Committee. The Judicial Committee does not have jurisdiction over the Secretary of State. So that is grossly that's not my intention, but the way it's written, would imply that. So there needs to be an amendment here to indicate that the appeal to the Judicial Committee has to do with either the treasurer regarding sustaining membership, or even though it doesn't, well, okay, the Grims Committee isn't listed here, so the subject to appeal is only for the treasurer part. That's what it's supposed to say. But that extra comma in there is making that a problem.
Here's my question to you, Mr. Seebeck. The Secretary of State is often slow. And at least in the other proposal, the idea was pending resolution with the Secretary of State one way or another, there could be an appeal to the Judicial Committee. Now, I don't know if your intent in this proposal is different than my intent in the other one.
The intent here is that if there's a question whether they're a party member, i.e. registered to vote Libertarian, then that needs to be resolved with the Secretary of State's office, because they're the ones who handle that. But if there's a question regarding whether a party member is a sustaining member, then as has been pointed out, that would be in the treasurer's records for who's paid the dues to be a sustaining member. And that if there is a dispute over that specific issue, then that could be appealed to the JudCom.
Well, let's hear from Mr. Hirschman to give you a moment to, and I had a question as well that I'll get.
Does what I'm saying make sense to everybody?
It does. I think I might want to bring up something you hadn't considered, but Mr. Hirschman.
I was just going to suggest making it 2 sentences so that you don't have that problem.
You could do that.
So I'll call on you next for your amendment, Mr. Seebeck. I just want to note though, and I don't know if this is your intent, this kind of removes, I don't want to call it a right, but it makes more strict than what we've had in the past. If you remember the past couple conventions, we've had people, and I don't remember the exact argument, so I don't want to be quoted on this, but they are basically saying something to the extent of they registered, they should be allowed to vote at convention, but like the Secretary of State dropped them, or it's just not showing up in our database. Maybe their name is spelled wrong. And that's always been allowed to be resolved by the delegates. This would remove that entirely. Like if you look at the strike through language in red, of which this is replacing, it is tightening that, and it's not allowing somebody whose registration might have gotten screwed up an opportunity for at least temporary resolution until they can straighten out with the Secretary of State. Now, that might be your intent to remove that area, but I just wanted to make it clear that that's what is happening, where it's putting somebody at the mercy of the Secretary of State without any temporary reprieve by either the Judicial Committee or a vote of the delegates.
That is not my intention. I would point out, however, that everybody who registers to vote in the state of Colorado gets an in the mail voter registration card indicating their registration, all of their different districts, their precinct information, all that good stuff, including their party affiliation.
We've had
I
circumstances so where people said they were
That's
involuntarily
their evidence.
switched. No, they were saying, no, I was registered 90 days before convention, and 35 days in, like, they switched me. Like, we've heard those claims before. I've never got a voter registration card, by the way, from the state of Colorado ever.
I've gotten them every single time I've dealt with that over the past 38 years.
Did
Maybe
you have a,
maybe it varies by county.
did you have a motion though, Mr. Seebeck?
Still trying to figure out how to word this.
If
There does
gonna
need
call
to
on-
be, there
I'm gonna
needs to be a
call
change
on-
made, but I don't know what it is yet.
I'm going to call on Mr. Hirschman next. How about we, let me highlight this and we skip this and come back to it kind of the way we came back to that other provision in my proposal to give you time to come up with language?
I'm thinking Mr. Hirschman's idea to split it into 2 sentences might be the best answer. At least as far as the concern I was raising, but that doesn't address the concern that you raised.
Well, it's up to you how you want to handle, if you want to make the motion to split it now, or if you'd like me to just like put a pin in
Let's-
this one and we'll come
let's-
back to it.
Let's defer it for the moment.
Okay, Mr. Hirschman, you still had your hand up. Did you have something further?
I did not, but I couldn't see that my hand was up.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right, so I'm going to highlight this as we're going to come back to this at the end, which might be next meeting. Well, probably will be because we got very limited time, and it will give you time, Mr. Seebeck, to come up with language that says what you wish. So we're moving on to section 2. Remember, section 1 is members, deals with both.
Madam Chair, one detail real fast.
Oh, sorry.
Just a request. Would you please offline reiterate that concern that you just addressed over to me so I can figure that into that?
Yes.
Thank you.
So section 2, dues. A, dues shall be annual. And you want to know what I think that, and tell me if you object, Mr. Seebeck. I think this is all of like one piece that we don't need to go like we can amend this as a group. Because they all,
I have no problem with that. I
Okay,
just
yeah.
put them in separate lines just to make it clear.
yeah, but I think they're so interconnected that the seriation part needs to be of the entire section. You know, people can do various parts. So I'm going to read the whole thing. Section 2, dues. A, dues shall be annually assessed. B, dues shall be $25. C, the dues period. And you'll notice that dues period was a word that was used earlier, in case anyone was curious, from October 1st of a year through September 30th of the next year. D, dues shall not be prorated. E, party member donation shall only be considered dues when specified by the party member. F, any person may pay dues on behalf of another party member. G, a dues payment for a person that is not a party member shall be considered to be a donation to the party. H, the party may not refuse or refund dues payments. One thing I'm going to say, well, 2 things. I like the any person may pay dues on behalf of another party member. And when we get back to amendment on the primary and the substitute, I'm going to add that to the primary. I have no amendments to make. I am going to end up voting for the primary primarily because of this section. Because I don't agree with the year to year and not prorating. But I'm not going to offer any amendment because that would just fundamentally change this. And that's one of the big changes you wanted here. I think that's probably the biggest difference right now between the two proposals. Mr. Seebeck and then Mr. Hirschman. Mr. Seebeck.
Okay, first of all, I thought that after discussion with Mr. Melman, prorating was off the table. And second of all, any person may dues on behalf of any party member, that is actually a National Judicial
Yeah.
Committee precedent from 2009.
It's in the national bylaws now too, by the way.
Yeah, because of that ruling. And I argued that case before that JudCom. That's why I'm very familiar with it. I would also add a comment that on the dues period, yeah, it was, I have in here October 1st of a year through of the next year. That was based upon the discussions we had in the last meeting about the October 1st date, which to my recollection and to my own opinion is reasonable. The idea on item G, where a dues payment for a person that is not a party member shall be considered a donation to the party. You can't pay dues for someone who's not a member of the party. So they're just giving us money. And it also sets up the distinction between a donation of one type and dues that are a specific type of donation for the other. And specifying that they are dues does fall on the onus of the party member, because if they want to say give money to the party for a specific non-dues purpose, like a committee, then they can do that as they specify it, but then they need to specify what they're paying for dues as well, to keep everything square, straight, and crystal clear for record keeping and for their own information. That's all I have.
Yeah, one clarification, Mr. Seebeck, because actually I'll get in line because I think it's in the nature of debate. Mr. Hirschman.
I would like to strike either C or D, and my preference is to strike C. Because I don't think, I think not prorating, but having a fixed period is just not a good combination.
So what's your motion, Mr. Hirschman?
Strike line C.
Okay, which you need to speak further to that?
No, I think I said it.
Okay, the comment I was going to make before to Mr. Seebeck actually goes to this, so I can speak on the amendment. I think I either said it poorly or was misunderstood. Yeah, the proration is not possible with the CRM, but my objection was to having a fixed dues period and no proration. I wasn't suggesting proration be added. I was actually saying what Mr. Hirschman did to strike this. The reason why I didn't move to strike it is when you start to it was one of the main differences between the two proposals. When you start to make the two proposals two alike, it makes it difficult to choose between the two. But of course, you know, everyone's right to do that. I guess I'm kind of rambling a bit. Mr. Seebeck.
Yeah, there's a major problem with this proposed amendment, and that is that if you strike out dues period and its definition, then you've got to go back and fix where it refers to dues period in the previous section. In both G and I believe there's a couple other spots up in there. I'm going to move to amend that amendment and say, rather than strike item C, that we keep item C, but say the dues period shall be, and then establish it as 1 year. That would allow for the rolling anniversary dates that we previously discussed, keeps the dues period definition here for minimal issues with other parts of this proposal at the same time, and satisfies the concern about a fixed date.
Mr. Seebeck, that amendments, it's not in order at this time, because you can make it, if this gets stricken, you can move to just add a new paragraph C. So if this fails, you can move to strike and insert. And if it passes, you can move to add a new paragraph. So your motion can be made no matter what happens with this motion.
I fail to see how this is out of order when it is amending by amending a strike by keeping words that were part of the words were meant to be stricken in play, when that was already done previously in this very meeting regarding other words.
Because you're converting a motion to strike into a motion to strike and insert. It's converting one parliamentary form into another.
No, I am not converting a strike to strike and insert. I am converting a deletion to a retention.
That would be retaining that entire language, and you can do that just by voting against the strike.
That's not the way we did it earlier.
I don't know specifically what example you're talking about, but that's my ruling on this particular one. Did you wish to appeal?
Not at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Seebeck. Mr. Hirschman.
I can, may I change my amendment, my proposal?
Only
Or-
with the consent of the body. Let the body know what it is that you wish to change, and we'll see what they say.
I think I like Mike's better than mine, because I hadn't thought about the dues period thing being mentioned before. And his suggestion solves all that.
Is there any objection to Mr. Hirschman withdrawing his proposed amendment? Okay, hearing none. Do you want me to now recognize? Mr. Hirschman, do you want to make that proposal, or would you like me to call on Mr. Seebeck to do so?
Well, I can do it. It's
Okay.
Change it to the dues period shall be 1 year.
So you're moving to strike from October 1st through the end, and insert shall be, insert 1 year.
Yes.
Okay, give me 1 second.
Actually, all you need to insert is the word one and leave that last word year.
It works either way.
Mhm.
I don't like all the, yeah, it would work, but I've already started it this way, and was there, I know this one color here is still a little weird, but I'll fix that in a minute. Is there anyone who wishes to speak to this? I know it's already been spoken to somewhat. Mr. Hirschman,
No, I think it kind of.
your hand was still raised, that's why.
Sorry, I can't, the screen isn't showing that anymore, so I'm kind of forget that I got my hand up.
Is there any, okay, actually, I do have something to say, just a question. If Mr. Hirschman's prior proposal was done, which it wasn't, and C was stricken, doesn't A already say it's a year? Like, it seems to me C is, once we take out the fixed date, that C is completely superfluous.
It's just the dues period was the
Okay.
issue, I think. The fact
Okay,
that the
got
dues
you.
period was.
Got you. All right. Is there any objection to this change? Okay, hearing none, that will be made. Is there any further amendments to this section 2 dues?
Yes.
Go ahead, Mr. Hirschman.
Now I think we can delete A.
Okay, so Mr. Hirschman is moving to delete A. Would you like to speak to that?
Well, as you pointed out, it's kind of repeated again in C, and we really don't need to be that redundant, I don't think.
Mr. Seebeck?
It is not redundant.
Oh,
A indicates when they are assessed, doesn't indicate how long the period of time is. The first one puts an onus implicitly here on the treasurer or whoever's doing that work with them versus a structure attached to the dues themselves. So they're not redundant. They are different pieces of the whole picture.
Okay, would anyone else like to speak? Because this is, we're coming up, we're on 9, so we will be adjourning after this and continuing the rest at our next meeting unless someone moves to extend time.
may I withdraw my amendment?
Is there any objection to Mr. Hirschman withdrawing his amendment? Okay, seeing none, that is withdrawn. Is there a motion to extend time? Okay, hearing
I
none, let
move
me,
to extend 15 minutes.
okay, there's a motion to extend for 15 minutes. Is there any objection to extending time for 15 minutes? Right, hearing none, we will continue. Okay, under affiliates and development groups. The first change.
I do
Under
believe most of these are in the nature of conforming as we had before. Keyword being most.
I don't know if they are. I don't believe they are. Which one do you believe is?
A large chunk of where the word sustaining is added in front of members.
I actually don't think they are. Let me just give you as an example of this first one. There's nothing that says only sustaining members can request affiliation. I mean, if we added the word sustaining here, that would add that, but I don't think that's at all stated before to make it a conforming change.
Well, then well, let's go through them then.
I'm sorry?
Let's go through them then.
Okay. Would anyone, I would like to speak, but I want to give others an opportunity.
I'd like to speak to this one, the first one.
You go first, Mr. Seebeck.
It's the idea here of putting sustaining there is that when an affiliate is coming into play, especially in its infancy, and I've been through this, we need to have a commitment by a core group at that point who have put forth the time and the effort either as a development group beforehand or just going directly into affiliation in order to make it start off and be sustainable. And I hate using that term, but it's the best term available as an affiliate as it gets things moving. And you're more likely to get that from sustaining members than just general party members because they've already shown a commitment to get to the party and to get these things moving. That's why I put sustaining in there.
Okay, here's my pushback. I don't like philosophically, or no, pragmatically disagree with what you said, but I'm always loath to put restrictions on affiliates. And like, even in the primary proposal, it's just a requirement that people be party members, not sustaining members. I am loath to put constraints on affiliates and affiliate development at the grassroots level that requires them to pay money to the state board. Pragmatically, I agree with you, but fundamentally, I have a catch on my spirit about putting that onto affiliate development. And I think practically it's going to be sustaining members most of the time, but I'm not comfortable with making that a requirement. So seeing as there is some objections, we're going to go to a vote. Seeing no other debate, a yes vote would add sustaining members to this. A no vote would just leave it as members. Mr. Seebeck.
Clarification, he's talking on item A here, right?
Item A only.
Okay. Even though I proposed, I'm gonna say no. I think they can make a better argument.
Mr. Rutledge.
No.
I'm sorry,
I don't know.
Mr. Wark,
No,
Mr. Hirschman,
No,
Mr. Schallhammer,
Yes.
Mr. Fury.
No,
Okay, item B,
Hold it, Madam Chair.
I'm sorry,
Need to make an amendment there. to A.
where? Oh, take that out.
We'll take that out, yeah, but I'm moving to instead, because we struck that out, add the word party right there.
Okay. 1 second. And I kind of think that's necessary. Well, God, I hate Google. I think it's a
believe that might be in the
it's a-
nature of conforming.
I think it is, because we're adding levels, different levels of membership. I would think that is a conforming amendment. So unless there's objection to me declaring that a conforming amendment, we're going to move on to B. Mr. I'm just going to note, I'm going to have the same argument on B, and I'm not going to repeat it to save everyone's time. Mr. Seebeck, did you wish to speak to B?
Well, I had the same argument for B as I did for A, but my mind has been changed, so I'm going to move to amend sustaining and replace it with party. As
Okay.
well as with A.
Just not gonna do all the waste y'all's time with the thing. Is there objection to amending striking sustaining, excuse me, and inserting party? Hearing none, let it be written, let it be done. I'll put that there. That was really just on the amendment, so I have to ask on the paragraph itself, is there any objection to adopting this as part of our seriation? I always mispronounce that word. I've said it 10 different ways. Whatever that word is, consideration. Hearing none, we're moving on to the next. I have the same objections here, but I have something else to add. Their party members, the word party is defined in our bylaws as being the LPCO. I know the word there kind of modifies it, but I think that's awkward. Do you see what I'm getting at, Mike?
I do see what you're getting at, but do you see what I was trying to get at?
Yeah, but I just think because we've defined party, and I see how there modifies it, but I just think it kind of defeats what we tried to do on the style committee that time.
Okay, okay, hang on. We got a multiple things going on here within this section.
Yeah.
So let's take them one thing at a time. First item, let's move the 2 terms to amend the 2 points sustaining to party. Let's get that fixed first.
Okay, I'm gonna, because it was the same arguments as before, I'm going to ask if there's any objection to these 2 times it says sustaining member to make it party members. It's keeping it consistent with the 2 paragraphs that came below, before. All right, hearing none, those are resolved. So now we're on to publish their bylaws.
What I'm trying to get to there is that as they've been affiliated, they have their bylaws, they've signed their charter, all those details, that their bylaws need to be published to the party members within the bounds of their affiliate, the geographical nature of the affiliate, whatever that affiliate may be. That's where I'm trying to get to that, which is what this was trying to be in the first place. It's just trying to, maintain that language, but consistent with everything else.
Mr. Hirschman.
I think that can be accomplished by taking out the party after there. So you have the struck out those, and you got their underlined and party underlined. If you take out party, it's then their members, and you don't have the confusing connection to the state party.
And I have another suggestion. I think all of that is implied just by publishing their bylaws. I think we can accomplish this by saying maintain at least 5 party members, publish their bylaws, and follow their initial their campaigns.
Not quite, because the board needs to have a copy of their bylaws on file, and that needs to be explicit, I believe.
Okay, so John's amendment is to strike party from here.
Correct.
And I need to do it in another color because it's not really being stricken from the original language.
I can live with that, I think.
So it would say to their members. John, your hand's still raised, just an FYI. Is there any objection? Okay, moving on to E. I have the same objection to E that I had to A, B, and C.
Yep. Same amendment.
Okay, is there any objection to Mike being able to just substitute in here party member for sustaining member to make it consistent with everything we've already passed? All right, seeing none. Okay, we're on to G. Okay, it's to strike the last sentence. Associate members shall not be allowed to vote at the convention, serve as an officer of the party, including at the affiliate level, or seek nomination as a Libertarian Party candidate for any public office. Mr. Seebeck?
The proposal here was because an associate member could be an unaffiliated member, or they could be a national party member who is not registered to vote within the state. That possibility does exist, but they're still taking an act because they object to voting, that there are party members who do that. Then they would have an associate membership title, assuming the affiliate bylaws allow for it, but they're not a member of the state party because they're not registered to vote or they're not registered to vote as Libertarian. And therefore, they don't get the privileges of being a party member, let alone a sustaining member. This was an attempt to kind of clean that language up a little simpler because those specific parts about voting a convention, officer in the party, and so on are now split into party members and sustaining members above that. So this kind of cleans up and covers those details without having to reiterate the same thing.
Okay, is there any objection to this proposed amendment?
But did I make sense there? I hope.
Yeah, I understand what you're doing.
Okay.
All right, hearing none.
Time,
This here, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Hirschman.
time.
Yeah, but I was just noting that sustaining here needs to be changed to party because that is a conforming amendment to what was passed before. Okay, we are out of time. Let me just scroll as to what's left. So that people could get, yeah, there's still quite a bit to go through. So, I mean, unless, we are going to be adjourned unless, with some closing instructions from me, unless there is a motion to extend.
I don't have a motion to extend it. When's our next meeting?
Our next meeting, hold on. Yeah, that was going to be part of closing instructions. I would say it's going to be next Sunday. And I'll send out,
Do
I
we not
know-
have one during the week?
I cannot.
Okay.
Okay, so next meeting, we will continue going through these here. And I'm going to tell you what I intend to do. And I'd like to know the committee's thoughts on this now, if you disagree. I would think if we go through all of this next meeting, that party members then need to see, and not party members, bylaws committee members need to see both proposals, clean copies without all the markup language, just so that they can read them on how they would read. I don't think we can meaningfully vote between the substitute, which we just got done amending next meeting, that will have, it's so long, both of them are so long with all this markup. So what I'm intending upon doing is next meeting, after we get through the substitute, we're not going to vote on which of these two are going to be the primary or the adoption of it until the meeting after that. We're going to move on to other proposals and to give members a week. So to be 2 weeks from today, we'll finish perfecting this substitute and do any additional amendments to the primary. Then I will be tasked with sending out to the committee clean copies of both proposals so they can read them side by side and make a meaningful decision between the two. Does that seem acceptable to the rest of the committee?
That seems downright reasonable.
Okay, so next meeting, we're going to start with finishing perfecting of the substitute. Then both of them will be open up to further amendments. And then we're going to postpone actual voting between the two to the following meeting. And I'll distribute a clean copy. And for the rest of next meeting, we'll move on to other proposals. I would suggest everyone take a look at our agenda and look at these proposals that are coming up. Hopefully, we can move through them quickly and get quite a bit banged out next week after we perfect that proposal. Then when we come back on the third week, so next week, what's it, the 22nd is our next meeting?
That's
What day
next
is
Sunday,
today?
yes.
Okay, so on the 29th, we will be voting on which of the two and bang out more proposals, but
Can you scroll up in that list a little bit?
sure.
Just. Okay, then can you scroll down? What's after number 7?
Actually,
Keep going,
Let me-
please.
yeah, I just wanted to look on for the 29th when I am coming back. I am out of town.
Whoa, back up a minute, please.
Okay,
Okay, that's fine. Okay, what I was looking for is there. Thank you.
okay.
I wasn't sure where it was in the order.
I want us to look at the calendar 1 second here. And I want to look at the 29th. Because I'd like to fix our schedule right now. Definitely next weekend is fine. Yeah, I'll be back in time. Wait. Yeah, wait, no, I won't. I cannot meet on the 29th. We can. Next weekend, we can decide on a different date. Would, or we could do that now. Would the 30th Monday be available to people?
It's okay here.
I'm going in for surgery that day. I correct some surgery.
What kind?
They're going to use a laser on my eyes.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask.
May you
every-
have great success with that, because having lived it, when it succeeds, it's fantastic.
Okay, I'm gonna offer some dates and no, that's national bylaws. So, wait, when's our next national? Yeah. The next,
25th, isn't it?
that's a
25th?
Wednesday, isn't it? Sunday.
I-
Our next national bylaws
that.
is the 26th.
26th, that's right, yes.
I'm gone 27th through 29th. The 30th isn't good for Bennett. Does the 31st work?
Not for me.
Well, we
That
got to
day,
meet one of those 2 days. How does, and
30th
here's,
is okay, 31st is not for me.
okay, here's what I'm going to say, Bennett, and I hope you don't get angry. But considering we're going to be voting on proposals, one authored by me, one authored by Mike, I have to set in favor of a day that Mike can be here because it's one of his proposals. And the rest of the proposals on this list pretty much were submitted by Mr. Hirschman, myself, and Mike. With the majority being Mike and myself, I can't really exclude, like, if I have to pick between 2 members, I'm sorry, that's the way I've got to pick it. So our next meeting's the 22nd. The meeting after that will be the 30th. Then our report's due on the 18th. On the 30th is going to be our last substantive meeting, because then we've got to vote on ordering. I've got to write a report. So we need to get everything we want done by the 30th. All of these proposals are not going to be heard.
I'll do my best to listen in, but
Okay.
I'm not sure I'll be able to follow what's going on.
What I would suggest, Mr. Rutledge, is after the 22nd, when I send that clean copy of the 2 proposals between the 2 adding dues, that you review them carefully during that week, because on the 30th, we're just going to be voting between the 2. There's going to be no more amendments or anything. And everything else, I think, is going to be a lot easier to follow just by listening. I think a lot of the more complicated stuff is going to be next week.
Good.
So I think you'll be good. And then in the following 2 weeks in February, we're going to be working on our report and finalizing it. So whatever we get through on the 30th, we're done. Okay, everyone. So we are adjourned at 9:25. This was a long meeting. Thank you all for your very hard work, and I will send out the Zoom link and updated agenda and all of that good stuff.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Bye.